Hello, I'm Sandra, and welcome to the training What to Expect, a guide for those sharing case file reviews during the monitoring visit. This training is designed for those who will be presenting guided case file reviews during the Office of Child Care monitoring visit. We hope that this will give you an insight into the process to help you feel comfortable and know what to expect. Before we get started, on behalf of the Office of Child Care, we'd like to extend our appreciation for all the work you do on behalf of children and families. You are the front line of the Child Care and Development Fund, referred to as CCDF, within your community, ensuring that children and families have access to quality child care programs that meet their needs. Thank you for all you do to make it happen. Further, thanks for being a part of the monitoring visit. OCC wants to hear from you to better understand how your state administers the CCDF program. We appreciate you sharing your time and expertise with us. So let's dig in. Again, the goal of this training is to help you feel better prepared for the guided case file review portion of the interview you'll be participating in as part of the monitoring visit. Here are our objectives for this training. In this training, we'll provide a high-level overview of OCC monitoring and the changes for federal fiscal year 2025-2027 and explain why OCC conducts the guided case file reviews to learn how CCDF policies and practices are implemented at the local level. Discuss the work already done as part of monitoring during the pre-visit phase between your state and the OCC monitoring team. The OCC monitoring team includes representatives from the OCC Central Office and Regional Office, as well as representatives from OCC's monitoring contractor, WRMA, and take you through a sample guided case file review and scenario questions as a way to understand the flow of the conversation and types of questions you may be asked. Great. Let's begin by developing a clearer picture of OCC's monitoring of CCDF. Your state receives federal funding through CCDF to support part of your early childhood system. The funds allow children and families to enroll in child care programs that fit their needs and help children succeed in school. These CCDF funds are administered through the Federal Office of Child Care. Federal regulations require OCC to monitor states' implementation of their CCDF program every 3 years. The goals of the visit are to ensure your state's compliance with CCDF provisions and approved CCDF plans, and to identify technical assistance needs to help your state meet CCDF requirements. It's important to remember that OCC monitoring is not a gotcha. Over the last few months, OCC has been working collaboratively with your lead agency to understand how CCDF is implemented through state and local policies and procedures. In addition, your state's leaders and the OCC monitoring team have worked to build the schedule for the monitoring visit. As a part of those conversations, your state leaders selected those individuals best positioned to share what CCDF looks like in action. That's where you come in. The OCC monitoring team offers lead agencies the option to provide guided case file review office hours for local level staff and supervisors. The guided case file review office hours clarify expectations and continue the discussion of the on-site guided case file reviews. During this call, local level staff and supervisors have time to discuss the case file selection criteria, walk through the guided case file review process, and ask questions. The OCC monitoring team will also share available resources. After completion of this training module, we strongly suggest that local level staff and supervisors utilize the office hours to help understand and prepare for the on-site visit. During the pre-visit phase, OCC conducts a review of the state's approved CCDF plan, as well as a document review of your lead agency's high-level documents, like rules, regulations, policy and procedure manuals, and licensing monitoring checklists to understand how CCDF is administered. During the on-site monitoring phase, which typically lasts about 3 days, the OCC monitoring team will meet with numerous state-level staff and local-level staff like you to help understand the lead agency's policies and processes in action, acknowledging that you know the work best. It's important to note that in federal fiscal year 2025-2027 monitoring, there is more emphasis placed on guided case file reviews and interviews with subsidy and regulatory staff to better inform the OCC monitoring team on the implementation by local entities throughout the state. Therefore, there's an increase in the number of case files that will be reviewed on site. The number of case files for your state is based on your CCDF administrative structure and has been discussed during Previsit planning. During the guided case file reviews and interviews, the OCC monitoring team will ask questions about the processes in place to help clarify policies or processes that were reviewed during the pre-visit phase. Remember that monitoring is not an audit of your case, but rather a conversation about your state's processes and procedures. Let's turn now to listen to a sample guided case file review. The case file review also includes some scenario questions. Now let's listen to a sample exchange between a couple of mock participants and a mock OCC monitoring team. It's important to note that each monitoring visit is unique. Questions vary from case to case, but this sample scenario should give you a general sense of the types of questions asked and the flow of the conversation. This example case file review and scenario reflects an in-person monitoring visit. Participants will likely be gathered in a conference room. As a reminder, if your guided case file review session is held virtually, a web conferencing software will be used and additional technical support can be provided. The optional guided case file review office hours will serve as a practice session before the on-site visit to help you familiarize yourself with the technology and feel comfortable using web conferencing software. The office hours serve as an opportunity to ask questions, review criteria, and find reassurance if you are anxious about the monitoring process. The OCC monitoring team will be available to address any concerns you may have with the case file review process. Here's a little background before diving into this sample case file review and scenario. During one of the monitoring visit planning sessions, the state, which is our made-up state of Washington, was asked to identify subsidy case files from 2 different local offices that fit each of the following categories: initial approved application with 12 months of eligibility, redetermination with 12 months of eligibility, closure during 12-month eligibility period, new child in a family, level of subsidy benefit changing during 12-month eligibility period, family voluntarily reporting a temporary change during 12-month eligibility period, and payment authorization and issued payment. Keep in mind that a single case may fit more than one category. The state was also asked to select eligibility staff from local offices to present the cases. In the following example, you will hear from Violet, an eligibility specialist, and Linda, who is an eligibility unit supervisor. The state uses an electronic system for subsidy case files. Linda will show the OCC monitoring team the electronic case files, while Violet describes the actions taken in the selected case. Linda will also be participating in the interview whenever she and Violet feel it is helpful. Violet and Linda utilized the guided case file review checklist provided by the OCC monitoring team during the pre-visit phase of monitoring to prepare for the on-site guided case file reviews. The checklist is a support for eligibility staff as it is state-specific and outlines the information required for each criteria that you need to share with the OCC monitoring team. Violet and Linda are interviewed by Frank, who is a program specialist with the Office of Child Care's regional office and a member of the OCC monitoring team. You'll want to note that each monitoring session starts with introductions from the OCC monitoring team and the state participants. When prompted, you'll be asked to introduce yourself and provide your title. From there, the OCC monitoring team will provide an overview of the monitoring process and goals, tips for participating, such as referring to materials and speaking slowly, and then prompt the guided case file review. That's where we pick up in this conversation.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for introducing yourselves. If you are ready, we'll begin with the first case. Who will be presenting?
That will be me.
Great. As we go through the case, the OCC monitoring team may have questions or a need for clarifications. If you cannot answer a question, please feel free to consult your policy manual, regulations, or other supporting documentation. Consult with another colleague in the room or request to get back to us with an answer. We have note takers, so whenever you use an acronym for the first time, please share what it means. Also, our note takers would appreciate if you speak slowly. Sometimes it may be hard for us to see the screen, so it would also be helpful if you could say things like dates out loud. This way we can make sure we have accurate dates reflected in our notes. Which category of case will we be presenting?
This is Violet. The case we were asked to present is an initial approved application with 12 months of eligibility.
The floor is yours, Violet.
As you can see from the APP screen, the applicant applied on March 10th. He submitted the application via the web portal, and he attached several scanned documents: a copy of his driver's license, his son's birth certificate, the first page of his current rental lease, and a general statement from his employer that lists the employer's address, weekly gross and net incomes, and hours worked for the weeks of February 15th through February 19th. Those documents were scanned into the system, and I can show you them if you want.
No, that will not be necessary, but thank you.
Are there any questions?
I have none at this time, and I don't see any from the OCC monitoring team members.
I contacted the applicant by phone on March 12th and scheduled a phone interview for March 16th. That contact information appears here in the narrative screen. As you can see, our system does not have a specific screen for the interview scheduling information, so we enter it here as a narration.
This is Linda. Our eligibility specialist will do in-person interviews if the applicant requests one, but we, and most applicants, prefer phone interviews.
The intake interview was conducted as scheduled. There are a number of documents which I requested, and they were submitted by the deadline of March 23rd. Here's a copy of the system-generated form where the needed documents are listed, as is the submission due date. This was emailed to the applicant following the interview, and a copy is retained in the system. I finalized the case on March 24th, and the system mailed the approval letter that day. As you can see, the approval letter contains lots of information, including the income calculation, family size, parental fee, provider information, eligibility dates, appeal rights, and etc.
As Violet is an experienced eligibility specialist, her completed applications and redeterminations do not require my approval before finalization. With newer staff or those on performance plans, the system has an edit that requires my sign-off before a case action is finalized.
This is a perfect spot for us to begin with our specific questions. The approval letter you had on the screen, could you bring that back up for us to see? Thank you. It shows the eligibility begin date as March 24th, 2024, and the end date as March 31st, 2025. If I'm correct, this eligibility period exceeds 12 months. Is this the way all applications are processed?
Yes, our policy, that is the Washington State policy, is that if eligible, the applicant's initial eligibility period begins on the date of approval. Eligibility remains for the 12 months and ends on the last day of the 12th month. So this applicant was eligible for subsidy on the date of approval of March 24th and remained eligible until March 31st, 2025, given a little more than 12 months of eligibility. Our eligibility system automatically determines the dates of eligibility based on what we enter as the date of approval.
This is Linda, and I'll jump in here. As you can see on the screen, the approval letter shows the amount subsidy will pay and that the parental fee will be $52.12 per week.
How might the parental fee change during the eligibility period?
There are times when the amount may be decreased, but the fee would never increase.
Thank you, Linda. I have another clarification question. Would a recipient ever get less than 12 months of eligibility following the approval of their application?
This is Linda. No, the case may be closed during the 12 months for one of the approved reasons, like income over 85% SMI or moved out of state, but the initial eligibility period would have been as we described, which is the remainder of the application month plus 12 months.
One of the OCC monitoring team members asked if any actions are taken on the case if the parent loses their job.
No, we provide 12 months of eligibility, regardless of a loss in activity.
If the applicant asked for less than 12 months, like they knew they would be moving or their need for childcare would end, would you shorten the eligibility period?
I have never had that happen, so I am not sure. Can we have a minute to review our policy manual?
Yes, of course.
We would not shorten the eligibility period. We provide the clients with a change reporting brochure with the mailing of the approval letter, and I would just tell the applicant to report the change as required, and we would end the voucher with the child care provider, but the case will remain open until the end of the eligibility period.
Thank you both. You've answered all of our questions and described your process thoroughly. We appreciate you taking the time in your busy schedule to talk with us. Do you have any questions for us?
No, not that I can think of.
None at this time.
Great. We can move on to the next case and associated criteria.
Excellent. I hope you found that helpful. Did you notice the following during the case file review and scenario questions? Violet and Linda didn't prepare any presentation, PowerPoint, or script ahead of the guided case file review, and you should not either. They were familiar with the case in order to walk through it and highlight the criteria they are presenting with the OCC monitoring team by projecting their data system and answering any specific questions from the OCC monitoring team, which is what the OCC monitoring team is looking for. Although Violet is the eligibility specialist who processed the application, it is not necessary for the person who presents the case to be the person who processed it. What is important is that the person is familiar with the case and the factors of eligibility that the case was chosen to represent. Violet and Linda worked together to answer the questions for which they were most knowledgeable. It's okay to turn to another person if you think they might know the answer to the question better. Though keep in mind that during the case file review and scenario questions, the OCC monitoring team wants to hear from local level staff like you, not the state level administrators. And remember that it's okay to say I don't know, or to follow up on a question at a later time. Violet and Linda also took time to review their state's policy manual when asked a question they didn't know on the spot. Remember, you may refer to materials throughout the data collection session, as well as take notes on any questions asked. Feel free to ask for questions to be repeated, and know that the OCC monitoring team will ask for any additional clarification as needed. Note that in this conversation, Violet and Linda were not asked to provide any additional documents. However, if you are asked to provide additional documents, you can send them to the OCC monitoring team after the session. The OCC monitoring team will keep track of any requested documents and follow up before the end of the visit. Personally identifiable information, or PII, is information that can be used to distinguish or trace an individual's identity, either alone or when combined with other personal or identifying information that is linked or linkable to a specific individual. Because monitoring looks at actual case files, such as paper files or files in your data system during the case file reviews, PII comes into play. However, cautions are observed to ensure that this PII remains secure. You may share documentation and your data system that includes PII when we're on site during the monitoring visit, or via your screen should your data collection session happen virtually. The OCC monitoring team will not leave with any information containing PII, nor will the OCC monitoring team document PII in their notes. If you are asked to send any sample versions of documents following the visit, please send blank versions. Do not send or upload documents that include PII, like Social Security numbers, addresses, dates of birth, etc. Should you have any questions about a document that may contain PII, please reach out to your CCDF administrator before sending the document. Thank you again for taking time to complete this training. As a reminder, in the event that your guided case file review session is happening virtually, watch for details regarding sessions to support your comfort with technology. Should you have any questions regarding selecting case files, contact your CCDF administrator to reference your state-specific guided case file review checklist. And remember, the OCC monitoring team will offer optional guided case file review office hours to your lead agency to clarify expectations and continue the discussion of the on-site guided case file reviews. We look forward to talking with you during your monitoring visit.